Oh, baby, how y'all all? Welcome, Moon Griffon Show. Great to have you with us. If y'all caught this or not. Louisiana seeking ways to lessen $3 billion flood protection debt. Louisiana welcomed federal flood protection money in the wake of Hurricane Katrina in a deal that didn't require the state to begin repaying its share for a decade. But now that bill is coming due, and it has ballooned to $3 billion because of accumulated interest. See, we don't take care of our business. We don't take care. We don't have any priorities at all. It's keep on doing what you've been doing. And looming payment have Louisiana officials worried the debt was still money away from other risk deduction projects in a vulnerable state worried about the next killer storm. The debt threatens to create a new budget woe. Oh, come on. I can't believe that. Us with budget problems and Bill Edwards is the governor? Raise $7 billion in new taxes? What are y'all worried about debt and budget problems? Bill Edwards just fixed it. Don't even worry. Better relax, folks. We got Bill and Jay Dart. Co-governorship. There's no way. Don't even worry about stuff like this. Why even worry about it? Okay? We can raise taxes. It's not a problem. What's another $7 billion in new? Make it income taxes this time. Well, they got some of that already. Man, just raise the taxes. There's not a problem. Raise it on businesses. Just keep raising them. Look, it's proved to be a winning formula for this governor. So what's the problem? Raise some taxes. That's what we do. We fix everything with raised taxes. Look at our school systems. They're all perfect now, all at the top, because we raised taxes for schools. We raised taxes for roads before. Look at the roads, how good they are. We raised taxes for education, for roads. We raised taxes for Medicaid. I mean, look, folks, don't chip $3 billion chump change for Bell Edwards and Jay Dart. These guys don't even worry about it. Don't even worry about it. We don't have to have priorities for anything. Just raise taxes. Louisiana's first payment due next year on the $3 billion. Lawmakers are bristling at this near tripling of a cost estimate, particularly since the U.S. Corps of Engineers work on 350 miles of levee and 73 pump stations have taken years longer than promised and still isn't done. Well, what that got to do with everything? The project hasn't yet been delivered, but the interest started running from the date of the agreement. We think that's a serious problem. It's unfair. Well, a quote, Democratic Governor Bill Edwards. Well, it is unfair. Hey, Bill, go get some more money from the federal government. It's no problem. Man, look, raise some taxes on me. I need some more I need to pay out some more taxes. Raise some more taxes on the poor, up another penny sales tax. Look, the penny sales tax, if they were to go put another penny on us, the penny sales tax brings in about $900 million, okay? Run it for 4 years, and we pay it off. This is easy, folks. What's the problem? It's got to be creative in the way you take money out of people's pockets. Put another sales tax. I'm for putting 1 cent sales tax. Or if you don't want to do that, put another half-cent sales tax and bust the hell out of the people working on the income taxes. Bill Edwards shouldn't worry about it. It's not fair, Bill Edwards, you're right. But it's fair to Moon and Brandon, and it's fair to all the workers out here that you tax us to prosperity. That's all fair. It's all fair that we have an unfunded accrued liability of about $21 or $22 billion that you hadn't addressed or none of the other governors addressed. But that's fair. It's fair when we give you road tax money and y'all don't fix roads. That's fair. It's fair that we last in everything. That's fair that we put money in all this. It's fair that John Alario is the Senate president. That's really been fair to the taxpayers. Oh, that's really fair, Mr. Edwards. It's absolutely. It's fair that you took the Donald Trump tax cut. That's fair. But this is unfair that the federal government wants $3 billion. We become the moochers of the whole country. For every dollar we send the federal government, they send back $1.52. And it's unfair. Was it unfair when they showed up here with the money? Was it unfair when they showed up to help rebuild the state of Louisiana? Was that unfair? It's unfair. We have to pay anything back. You ought to tell the federal government to go to hell. And we don't need their money. Quit sucking up getting their money. I think it's unfair you expanded Medicaid like you did. I think it's unfair that the abuse in the Medicaid system has taken place under your watch and under your influence. I think it's unfair to the taxpayers. But some kind of way it's fair for you to tax us $7 billion and don't fix a thing. They didn't. The government officials knew this was coming. Oh, this is a shock. It's way more than we thought. No, it didn't. You didn't care about it because it was not a priority. You got every penny you can get from poor people included. We hear these reports that sales taxes hurt the poor. Every Democrat voted for the sales tax. Every black Democrat voted for the sales tax. Bel Air was pushed to sales tax. But it's unfair to the poor. Well, let's not do any more dedications. Oh, there's another great article in the Times-Picayune. How now we're going to have funding for pre-K because we're going to tie it to sports betting. We're going to tie it to gambling. I'm telling you, the gamblers have Bel Edwards in his pocket. The debt's growing. All this stuff is coming on top of us, and it will in the years to come. Bel Edwards and Jay Darden set us back 10 years. Financially, they're destroying. Listen to me. They're destroying businesses and incentives to stay in this state. They don't even care. They're destroying the incentives to be in this state. Now we come up with, who's going to pay for all this? The late C.B. Ferguson used to tell me that, I never thought I'd leave the state, but I'm not sticking around to pay for all this. In other words, he knew that what's coming would just run up debt, would just take the money from the federal government, was keep taxing the people out of here, and never change the way we operate state government. All they care, all Governor Edwards has done, everything we're last in, is still last in it. Everything we needed to be last, we're first. Everything we need to be first, we're last. And the reason we head in that direction now is because we don't change anything except how to get more money out of our pockets. $3 billion, add a penny sales tax. And, of course, he's trying to work with the lawmakers who are trying to lessen what? Trying to lessen the debt. But their efforts were rejected during former President Barack Louis Farrakhan Obama tenure. And they're making little headway with President Trump. Well, why should they keep giving us, folks? We're begging money from the federal government. We don't change anything. But, boy, I tell you what, when Katrina was devastated, New Orleans and some of the areas, what did we do? What did we do? We begged for that money, didn't we? We knew there was a price to pay. We knew there was a price to pay. We just kept taking that money, just like we have with Medicaid. There's going to be a price to pay for that, too. John Bel Edwards and Jay Darden have set us back. By the way, the governor's commenting on the governor from Virginia. I got a couple questions for him when we get back. A lot of stuff to cover today, folks. Don't go nowhere. Of course, your call is always welcome. Hi, hello. Welcome back. Moon Griffon Show. Let's jump gears. We have with us, it's a pleasure to have with us, Dr. Loren Scott joins us. Dr. Scott, thank you so much, sir, for getting back in touch with us. Like I said, I bummed it out this morning, so I apologize to you. And nobody knows what we're talking about but us. But I just wanted to tell you that because I was looking forward to having you on. Hey, let's go into a little bit of detail. We see what happened with Georgia Pacific, which may have little to do with what we're talking about, but still the business climate here. I just get concerned for it. But the ExxonMobil and the ITEPs and I think we ought to start from the beginning. Why do we have these ITEP programs for businesses? And I'm going to let you take it from there because I think it's important to tell people why we have them.
Well, the primary reason we have them is because we are in constant battle with Texas for the kind of plants that are at stake here, these very large chemical plants and refining plants and LNG export terminals. What happens is Texas brings to the table the very same thing that we bring. They bring access to the Gulf of Mexico, so all this stuff can be exported to the world markets. They have access to pipelines. They have access to lots of natural gas, oil. All you need is right here. It's primarily in Texas and Louisiana. So we're competing with Texas all the time to get these plants here. And the problem we have is that if you look at where, Texas has no corporate income tax, they have no personal income tax, they have a unified sales tax system. They don't tax certain manufacturing inputs. They are ranked way better than us in terms of the legal environment. As a matter of fact, we rank 51st. We're even below the District of Columbia. They rank way better than us in terms of K through 12 and higher education, infrastructure. I mean, they're just classes. So we have to have something to offset that, so that the rate of return on equity looks as good here as it does in Texas.
Sure,
and that key thing that we've had over the years is the ITEP.
You still there?
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
no, sorry, I lost you there for a second. No, well, I know, but one of the things that I want you to explain to people, if you take that away, you're taking out one of our biggest options to be able to compete. Between you and me, I wish we didn't have any exemptions. But to do that, you would have to have a Texas tax base. That means not only business taxes, but also probably individual taxes. And then we did into the homestead exemption. So it's almost not even fair to compare. But if we get rid of this, we're not even in a ball game anymore. Am I wrong by making that statement?
No, you're absolutely not wrong. As a matter of fact, one of the things we're very concerned about over here is that Exxon has announced that they wanted to build a large expansion to, I believe, it's their polyethylene plant over here. It's about $1 billion expansion. And these are very high. I think it was around 65 jobs, very, very high-paying jobs. And right now, that sucker's on hold. They're looking at the uncertainty of the ITEP, and they're saying, this is such a problem here that why do this here when we got certainty in Texas,
sure.
We got certainty in Beaumont, and we got certainty in Baytown. As a matter of fact, they just announced a 68% expansion of their refinery in Texas, which is the largest refinery in the United States. And all of the expansion is going to take place in Texas. It's not going to take place here in the Baton Rouge.
By the way,
the third largest.
When I was reading everything the other day, it was an article of dealing with this, and when I got to the end of it, it said, well, Exxon's made a decision. They expanded in Beaumont. Is that the one you're talking about?
No, the one that they haven't made a final decision about that one I was talking about yet. But what they have done is they've said they're putting all of their expansion, all their refinery expansion money into Texas. And then we're talking about increasing the largest refinery in the United States by 68%. Well, why didn't they do at least part of that in Baton Rouge? Well, I think part of the reason is there's no certainty over here and about the ITEP and whether they would get it or not. So they said, well, what the heck? We'll just do it in Texas.
Dr. Loren Scott, my special guest. Dr. Scott, one of the big beefs I have and things that I wish we could change in Louisiana, and I don't know if you'll feel this way, but I'm going to throw it at you, is that I think we changed the rules too much. You got a playing field. Businesses especially come in and they look at 2 and 5 and 10 years. Nobody invests today hoping they get back something out today. They invest today so they'll have a brighter future tomorrow. And I feel like we changed the rules and everything, not just this. I mean, we changed the gambling rules. We changed the education rules. Every 3 or 4 or 5 years we do education reform. Does that hurt us? We don't set our goals and priorities and say, okay, here's who we are, and this is what we're going to be, the best we can be in this field. I think we changed the rules too much, and I think that hurts us.
Well, that could be. I certainly think this rule change was just. I don't talk to any professional economic developers that think this was a good deal. This was a smart move on our part. This was just a glaring mistake. And what caused it to be such a glaring mistake is there's a group out there in our particular city. Its name is Together Baton Rouge. There's a guy from New Orleans, the name of Broderick Baggert, who came up and started organizing. He's a community organizer, a Saul Lewinsky type from Chicago. Yeah. But he's organized many of the preachers and especially the teachers unions to come out and vote against all of these. Yeah. I mean, essentially, they don't like any of these. They think the people would have invested here anyway, which is that goes against about several decades of finance and economic theory and evidence. So I don't know. It's just that's really complicated things. I know the people in Lake Charles are getting concerned because there's more and more of this type of group that's starting to form up there. And fortunately, the people in the Sencha Parish, the people in West Baton Rouge Parish, have said, "Look, if the state thinks this is a good thing, we're going to vote for it. It's okay by us." That's the rule that they basically going back to the old rules, except you don't get 10 full years of exemption. You get 80% for 10 years.
Well,
some of the parishes are saying, "You got to be kidding me, man! Come to our parish, we'll take you."
Well, the thing about it is there's Together Baton Rouge, there's Together Louisiana, which is trying to form. I've heard there's a Together Acadiana coming. I mean, all of them are going to be around, and all of it is about getting money out of businesses. But it sets us in such an unfriendly business status compared to Texas. And I'm going to tell you something. If you're going to compete for jobs and stop our migration, Dr. Scott, you got to have that. I mean, we got to have ways that businesses can prosper here. Now, listen, and I'm sure you can go through it. I saw a great piece that you wrote, or at least some comments you made. It may have been for the Hayride. It may have been that you just put it out, talking about how much Exxon really benefits the area that you live in, not only the area you're in, but also around the state. And at the end of it, you said, Together Louisiana, Baton Rouge, you were mentioning them. Can you go through that and run through that real quick of the benefit that plan has been there for so long?
Probably can't give you all of it. That was a letter to the editor that was written way back in, September, August, somewhere in that.
But you got to go through some of it because that was really good.
Well, yeah, for sure. Basically what I pointed out was that the ExxonMobil is the largest property taxpayer in the parish by a mile. They pay about $32 million in property taxes to the parish, and the next one to them is Entergy's number 2, and I think they're down in the teens someplace. So they pay a huge property tax bill to the parish, and yet Together Baton Rouge doesn't think it's enough that they're paying. They are the largest supporter of United Way in this community. As a matter of fact, here's what you find. When you go to any of these parishes where you have large property tax exemptions that have been awarded in the past, they are just exemptions for 10 years. At the end of the 10 years, this stuff rolls on the rolls, and it becomes a huge boon to local governments. And but what you will find is those parishes that have very large property tax exemptions like this they're given, typically the largest contributor to the community, to the universities in the area, are these companies. I mean, United Way is tremendously benefited. And then, of course, there's the jobs. If you went to a Rotary Club meeting or a Chamber of Commerce meeting in Baton Rouge, and you had 500 people in the room, every 10th person could trace their jobs back to the presence of ExxonMobil. Either they worked for them directly or they got those jobs through the multiplier effect. Wow. So they're just huge.
Yeah, and when you mentioned
very, very beneficial to us.
Dr. Scott, you mentioned United Way. A lot of people give to United Way and other charities. But I saw the number you had. It was like $1.1 million. I mean, that's a lot of money going to a charity out of the goodness of their heart, not because they have to, because they want to.
Yeah. Yeah, it is a really, really huge number. And I don't know. It's just, they gave a lot of money to Southern. They got a lot of money to LSU.
Yeah.
And they contributed a lot to K through 12. They're just a really good corporate citizen.
Yeah. Hold on. Dr. Loren Scott's going to come back. We'll do one more segment with him. Don't go anywhere. Hickson has a hotline, 844-766-6607. We'll take a break. We'll be right back with Dr. Loren Scott. Hi, y'all. Welcome back. Griffon Show. Great to have you with us. Dr. Loren Scott, our special guest for this last segment of the first hour, 844-766-6607. Hickson has that hotline. Hey, Dr. Scott, I just want to jump gears a little bit with you on what's going on with Georgia Pacific as well. I know we lost some other manufacturing jobs in that area. I know the governor jumped up and said, well, we got other jobs they can go to, but I don't think there's a ton of 80 to – I mean, you're an economist. You look at a lot of things. Is there a bunch of $80,000 to $100,000 a year jobs that are out there in Louisiana? I don't see that, but maybe you can correct me and tell me they are, because I'd love for those people to be able to walk across the street or not go to Texas and work in our state.
Well, as it turns out, Moon, there is. The kind of matter of fact, there's Well, number one, there's been several job fairs here already to try to hook on to those Georgia
sure. That's
people.
Good. That's good.
And the BASF people. Now, and the primary reason for that is that, number one, there is a major industrial expansion going on in the southern part of the state, in the area from Baton Rouge down to New Orleans and beyond New Orleans, and then over in Lake Charles. So that's the first thing. And these people need operators. They need pipe fitters. They need the kind of folks that also work there at that plant and who are used to doing shift work, among other things. The second thing is that all these plants, these massive amount of plants that we have up and down the Mississippi River and over in Lake Charles, their workforce is getting, on the average, pretty old. And they are tense about the ability to get people to come in and replace their workers as they retire. And so, boy, today, if you are a kid that says, I really don't want to go to college, I really just want to, look for a really good job. Let me tell you, man, if you just get maybe a year of training, you can become an operator on one of these plants. You can be making $80,000 to $100,000 a year. Now, you have to work shift work, but it is still just a
but we've been like that.
Benefits.
Yeah, we've been like that a long time. My daddy was a shift worker from he retired at Dow Chemical for 35 years. I had two brothers that went along the same route as he did. One of them's about to retire, and one of them's a little younger than me. He's gotten out the plant stuff. He said he's never going back, but and he's doing well. That was back in the day. We had all that stuff, and my daddy used to joke back then. My daddy just passed away. He's 80. He was 80. He would have been 83 this past December. And he used to say, a lot of times back then, if you lost your job, you can walk across the street and get another one. It was back in the day when all that stuff was growing. I'm not saying it's like that today, but you're saying there's other opportunities that people want.
Yeah, I mean, really, I've been watching the Louisiana economy for 4 decades, and in a really good year in the past, if we had $5 billion in industrial announcements, we'd have thought that was great. Since 2012, we've had $172 billion. It is just like anything I have ever seen before. It is an amazing amount of construction. A lot of it taking place in Lake Charles. It's either taking place in Lake Charles or on the river between Baton Rouge and the mouth of the river. It is just like something I've never seen before. And as it turns out, about half of those have not started up yet. They have not pulled the trigger. In terms of going vertical.
Doesn't that worry?
Half of them have.
Don't that worry you a little bit, too? Because I've seen them say they were going to start and not start at all. Two other things on that. One of the things that I read, and I'm sure you can correct it if it's wrong, that ever since the governor signed this new ITEP deal where they're not going to get the full benefits and things of that nature, and I don't know if the lobby's putting it out or not, but it's saying the amount of money coming in, amount of investments is down 72%. How does that work against the numbers or for the numbers that you just mentioned?
Well, the numbers that I just gave you, I would roughly estimate that of that 172, about 155 or so billion came in under the old rules. They were grandfathered in under the old rules prior to 2016. And so they're okay, but they're looking at what's going on and they're getting nervous because once you build a plant, it's fairly, you're always having to spend a lot on these suckers. You're really having to spend a lot of money to upgrade them.
Sure.
You're having to spend a lot of money to meet environmental controls and all that. And they're thinking, well, I'm going to spend some capital expenditures down the line. Historically, I've always gotten the 10-year industrial tax exemption on that. Now I'm not so sure.
Okay.
So I'm sure it's causing some of them to pause right now. So and it's not like we have a little bit of stake. We have a humongous amount of stake.
So in other words, the good news you had, this kind of concern, it's got to concern you too. You've been watching it. You see the good news developing, but you're worried about is it going to really develop and really come into to what you would like to see happen?
Yeah, I just think that this move to the local side that was put in place, that combined with what together Baton Rouge and together Louisiana are doing has just been a giant economic development.
Well, there's no doubt that people will come in and look at that and say, whoa, just a second, this may not be where we want to be or invest, and that's a concern. I know Don Briggs, a couple of years ago, was really upset that 2 or 3 years ago that we knew all prices were going back up, and I know the oil industry has changed a little bit for here. I mean, maybe forever. But they came in and had some investors, and he said they looked and they saw the lawsuits. They saw the governor was involved in that, and they said they're not investing here. And they just picked up and left. And it was big developers, big people with big pockets. They just left.
Yeah, I mean,
that's the kind of stuff that worries me, Dr. Scott. Really concerns me.
Well, it should, and indeed it should. As a matter of fact, the rankings that I've seen on our legal environment, again, we rank 51st in the United States. Even the District of Columbia is better than we are. And unfortunately, the governor has encouraged these, especially the parish governments, to sue oil companies down here in the southern part of the state. It's just incredible. And that's just, like you say, as Greg said, this is a no-brainer. It's not like there's no other place you can go to drill for oil. There's lots of places now with fracking, and that has not been helpful to us. And that's really harmful to where you're sitting. You're in Lafayette, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I mean, this is the heart blood. This is the heart blood of the oil and gas industry and the servicing of it, and it's just not good for. This is not big.
I just hear the stories because I live here and I'm in the community every day selling advertisement and different things, and I hear the stories. Man, I had a business for 29 years, and I'm moving my whole family to Texas. I hate hearing them stories. I just hate the fact. I know the people that go work in Texas and they come back and live here. You know how you run into somebody, Dr. Loren. I probably hadn't, Scott. I hadn't probably seen you a whole lot. But, if you don't see me for years, no big deal. I don't see you, no big deal. But if I run into you one day and say, oh, Doc, I left 4 years ago. I'm living in Texas. Well, that's the kind of stuff you're hearing, and that's the kind of frustrated stuff that I'm talking about. One other quick question. One of the other things that concern me is we continue to have out-migration of people. Now, all the things you told me good with the jobs, and we got the jobs, and we have good jobs. What concerns me is we've never stopped this out-migration. You know better than me. We've lost 2 congressmen the last 20 years. Now we're coming up on the 30th year. We're going to have a census in 2020. Are you hearing that? Could we lose another congressman? Because that says a lot about your job climate, because I don't think people leave. I think they leave for one reason. They leave for jobs.
Yeah, I mean, people do follow the money. That's absolutely the case. I do not know the answer to your question about the congressional thing. We'll find out, of course, when the consensus comes around. But our problem is not only out-migration. Our problem is that among states, a former chancellor for LSU, Jim Morton, did a really good study many years ago. He pointed out the biggest problem is no in-migration. Nobody's coming here.
Sure. Yeah.
And whereas you look at another state like Texas and Florida are just being flooded with people coming in because their economy is doing well, among other things.
Sure.
So we've got to do everything we can to keep our economy going well, because that's the way you attract folks. That's the way you keep the congressional delegation.
Yeah, by the way, I'm not saying we're not having lots of babies. I'm just saying that. I think you made a good point. They come in with jobs, they leave with jobs. But when you hear people that are leaving to go see their kids in Texas and retiring in Texas, they put their whole life here, disappointing. I hope we can change it around. Dr. Loren Scott, let's do it again soon. Thank you so much.
Okay, bye-bye.
God bless. Thank you so much, Dr. Loren Scott. All right, when we get back, a lot more to come, poll numbers and things of that nature. You don't want to miss it. We'll be right back. Appreciate Dr. Loren Scott, and there's a couple things. He was real positive in the jobs, and people can go get them. He did mention, though, Brandon, some of those jobs were, I don't think he said all of them, but some of those jobs were people that just want to go to work, and get a little training, and they could be making $80,000, $100,000 a year. And I was glad to hear that, because there are people that they want to go to work, and that's good. On the flip side, this ITEP, you heard him mention Together Baton Rouge. There's also a Together Louisiana, and I told y'all this last week. Horrendous group, horrible group, doesn't have a clue. All they want is tax dollars. One of the things that they did, Brandon, was they based this thing, got a bunch of faith groups in this, okay? And so they can bring in the church. And there's some churches been into it. I know the big Methodist church in Baton Rouge has backed out of Together Baton Rouge. They just said, no, we're going to move on. They weren't ugly about the group. But they moved on and got out of it because they brought together all this stuff. And what they did with Exxon is ridiculous. And you heard the concerns, even though Dr. Loren Scott talked about the plants and stuff that were developing not only in Lake Charles, but in the southern part, Baton Rouge toward New Orleans, which is a good thing. It had nothing to do with Edwards. But it's a good thing. And like he said, that's been going on a while. But it's really, he likes what he sees. But he also added that he's concerned about some of the investments. These people are seeing what's going on in our state with taxes. He alluded to the fact that the governor getting these parishes to suit an oil and gas industry. Those are big election issues, folks. And it needs to be that people that want jobs and businesses here, we really better look on who the next governor needs to be, because we're not going to get the positive from this governor. It's not going to happen. No, by the way, he didn't say that. I'm saying it. And Governor Edwards signed this ITEP rule in. Governor Edwards is standing side by side with Together Baton Rouge and Together Louisiana, which is a leftist group. You know, you heard he mentioned George Soros. He mentioned somebody else. Brandon, you remember? Lewinsky, not Lewinsky. What was the one he mentioned, Brandon? One of those leftists. It wasn't Lewinsky, whatever his name is, and a Marxist type person. And this is what this group is about. They say a lot of people, George Soros is behind the group. And it's those groups that have been developing all over the country, and they're anti-business. They're go get as much money as you can out of a business. The sad thing about it is that's how this whole state is being bet on, that we just go get. We got enough people we can keep taking from until we can't take from them anymore. And it don't matter if you're poor, middle class. They'll take it in sales taxes. They'll take it in income taxes. They'll take it in fees. It is the way it is. But I appreciate his honesty, and I'm glad he's upbeat about the business climate. The out-migration thing has been the best and brightest leaving, and it has to stop, and it has to stop now. We're going to fight something. Folks, in a few years, we're not going to be able to pay many bills. And that's what ought to bother people. And I'm being told by people smarter than me. I'm not saying everybody's not smarter than me, Brian, but people smarter than me, that we're going to be surprised at some of these elected officials who quit running for office and get out because they don't want the blood on their hands of what they've really done to the state. You know, $3 billion we have to pay back with the federal government dealing with Katrina. We didn't have any insight of that. We just let the good times roll. You know, it should worry you. It worries me. It should concern a lot of people. 844-766-6607, Hickson Exit Hotline. If you'd like to be part of the program. By the way, that poll that came out last week by the Liberal Education Reform Now Advocacy Group. It's a group out of Washington, D.C. And they've already endorsed Edwards. They do a poll. It hits Gannett and it hits the Advocate. And they didn't put everything in the newspaper. I'm just finding out and going back and looking at the poll. Okay? The poll was commissioned from Education Reform Now Advocacy, a charter school-friendly group that generally supports Democrats, conducted by LJR Custom Strategies. So they put all three in the poll. This is 600 likely voters, okay? And first of all, if you put Edwards, Risponi, and Abraham in the race, y'all saw the numbers. Edwards up 47-27. But when you put them all three in the race, Edwards goes down to 45. And this is their poll. This is a poll that they're bragging about. He's in the mid-40s. By the way, that poll that has him in the mid-40s is like the 4 or 5 polls I've already seen him in the mid-40s. Some below mid-40s. He has to win in the first round, folks. He comes in at 38-42, which is where I think he's going to come in at. He's going to get dusted in the runoff. Okay. Hayride had a piece. Okay. This poll had 53% Democrat sampling. Okay. Now, I want you to think about this. This is the poll that they put in the Advocate. This is the poll that Greg Hillman and the Gannett people put on the front page. You only got 43% registered Democrats, but in the poll, Brandon, you listen to this? They put 53% Democrats in the poll. But only 43% make up the whole state. I mean, that's good to be able to put a poll out that way. Actual turnout last fall congressional race, 45% Democrat, not 53, 36% Republican. Independents were 19. That would be me, Brandon. You too, huh? Okay. They oversampled Democrats by 10 points on voter registration, 8% on turnout. And Edwards only got 45% of the votes. Folks, that's horrible. Absolutely horrible was run as a news story in the Advocate, in the Gannett newspapers, and the Times-Picayune as being a poll, Edwards in good shape. I think he's in horrible shape. I mean, horrible. And that's the problem. They're trying to turn an election that he has problems winning into something positive. 49% of the people didn't recognize Abraham. 50% didn't recognize Rasmoni. Wait till they recognize him. They overstuffed Democrats by 10%. And he gets 47% when he goes up against Abraham. What a trash poll. It's a trash poll that the media made it a story. Now, one of the reasons I say this, there are people nervous out there. There are people nervous out there. Well, Bill Edwards is doing right. Bill Edwards is the economy. All that stuff you read because nobody has challenged the governor except me. That's not a boastful thing. I'm just being honest with you. They're not talking about it on talk radio in Baton Rouge or New Orleans. Not at all. John Bell's reelect numbers were in the low 40s. With 8 to 10% less Democrats, he's going to lose at least 5 to 6% in numbers. The real numbers for John Bell Edwards, okay, if you take out the 53% of Democrats that they claim and they're going to vote when it's going to be probably close to 45, his accurate sample numbers are 41 or 42, and I've been saying this because everything I'm seeing outside of these polls with these candidates, he's running somewhere between 38 and 42%. This organization announces they're endorsing Governor Edwards, and he's going to poll 45% or less. That's red flags, and they know it. And that's why you see what you see. In the Advocate, again today, this weekend, billing up Bell, shooting down Ralph Abraham. And by the way, I don't have a dog in the hunt. Abraham or Sponey, whoever else gets in, that's fine. But they do it every single chance they get. Every chance they get. Stephanie Grace had another piece. His reelection strategy aims for the middle, aims for teacher pay raise, Medicaid expansion, which has some major problems, minimum wage increase. And I love when they put this line in, Brian. You know it's my favorite one. Also behind Edwards is the task of digging out of the deep budget hole he inherited. He voted for it. He didn't inherit it. He voted for it. He voted for the budget problems that we have. I noticed something, Brandon. They're not saying $2 billion no more because this never was $2 billion. And the budget hole he had, he didn't inherit. He voted for most of them. I'm just telling you, there's a lot of people nervous, worried, making sure we can win this race. We can not only win it, we're going to win it. People got to see. There's never been a negative ad run against Bill Edwards. Nothing. Zero, zilch. All this stuff with ITEP and these businesses leaving and our migration continues to roll. Wow. Take a break. You're listening to The Moon Griffon Show.